What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am your man Logan Graffia. He is Calvin Rods. The name of this show and this podcast is called The Hit. Welcome to The Hit. This name of the show is going to be straight about different across the land. College football this past weekend. Take it away, Calvin.
So, in this beautiful sport that we call football, we had a pretty wild and excellent week of football, if you ask me. For some people, yes. For some people, no. So you got number one Georgia absolutely blasting Vanderbilt. I mean, we knew that was going to happen. Tennessee, I wouldn't really say upsetting Alabama because I think that low key all of us knew that Tennessee was a better team. It's just Alabama's Alabama, so people don't really expect them to lose. And Nick Saban is Nick Saban, but Josh Heupel is proving himself to be one of the best coaches in the entire country. So there you go. Clemson almost gets exposed once again by another unranked team in Florida State. Michigan and Penn State. Michigan pulls it out pretty handily. You have Utah upsetting USC by 1 point. Shout out to Utah. They're going to go up in the rankings this week. Uh, TCU upsetting Oklahoma State, number eight Oklahoma State in double overtime. Talk about an absolute fire game that was. They beat them by 3 points there, 43-40. Ole Miss goes up against Auburn. Almost blew it, but they didn't. So shout out to them. Syracuse, number 18 Syracuse, beats number 15 NC State. Another upset. I'm gonna keep it a buck, y'all. I went about 3 for 10 on my pick'ems this week. This is about how wild this week was in football and how unpredictable it was. Number 22 Kentucky upsets number 16 Mississippi State 27-17. Oklahoma upsets number 19 Kansas 52-42. Looks like the Kansas hype is already over and it just started. Um, you got Texas beating Iowa State. They win by 3 points. They barely squeaked that one out. Number 24 Illinois beats Minnesota. And Georgia Southern upsets the very, very, very hot number 25 James Madison 45-38. Um, and of course, Logan, take it away with good old LSU and the rest of Louisiana.
Well, we got to go over the scores around the boot, like you said. And to start it off, LSU beats Florida 45-35 on Tom Petty Day, that is. Those Florida fans were very upset about that. And the University of Lafayette Raging Cajuns beat Marshall 23-13. Tulane, who's a story that we're going to be talking about later in the show, beats South Florida 45-31. ULL Monroe Warhawks fall to South Alabama 41-34. Sad to say, your Louisiana Tech Bulldogs fall to North Texas 47-27, and the McNeese State Cowboys fall to Texas A&M Commerce 40-15. And since we're on the topic of Louisiana college football, let's just get right into it. The, I'm not even going to talk about LSU first, Calvin, which is a shocker. We're going to talk about the Tulane Green Wave. Tulane, Calvin, is now ranked for the first time since 1998. And for those who don't know, 1998 was Tulane's undefeated season, championship year. They finished the season ranked number 7. They won the Liberty Bowl. The on consensus or the consensus national champs that year, if you want to put it that way. But Tulane looks really good this year, Calvin. I mean, I remember not too long ago, I want to say maybe even last year when we first started the podcast originally, we was discussing Willie Fritz being on the hot seat. Now, he only has one loss on his name this year. Calvin, I gotta get your opinion on this. Did you expect Tulane to even be ranked at all this year?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like what I said last week. You're seeing their Coastal Carolina and their ULL type run. It's a team that they've gotten some great players, and obviously, they got Coach Hester now, my old strength coach at Louisiana Tech. The guy's solid. He loves Tulane. That's where he's from. So he's back home. So I know he's absolutely loving it there. And you do better when you love where you're at. I'm not gonna put all the success on him, but I definitely gotta give him a big shout out because I know he's doing some great things over there with those guys, and I follow some of the stuff he's doing there. Um, but I mean, there's something about there's two ways that a coach and a team can respond to when you're being on the hot seat, and that's either you buckle up your bootstraps and you figure a way out of that, and you fire everybody up and you start winning, or you start floundering even more because you're panicking. and Willie Fritz is not doing that. So big shout out to him. And I think this is the beginning of, not even really beginning, because for the past really 2 seasons you can start seeing it bubbling up a little bit. But this is going to be a great run for Tulane. And I mean, it is definitely truly 1998 because Tennessee is good, the Saints suck, and Tulane is also good. So it is definitely 1998. But man, no, I'm not surprised about Tulane.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you put it that way. With hey, it really might be 1998 again because crazy LSU and Tulane. I want to say LSU was decent in 1998, which we are seeing now. Tulane was freaking phenomenal in 1998, and the Saints absolutely was abysmal in 1998. So I can't believe we're living in 1998, Calvin. I was only 2 years old in 1998, so this is crazy to me. But I want to say Willie Fritz made some good decisions after losing, Will Hall, the Southern Miss, because he took the Southern Miss head coaching job. I was curious to see who he would go out and get as offensive coordinator. And excuse me if I'm pronouncing the man's name wrong, but Jim Savoboda. Sorry if I butchered your last name, Coach Jim. But anyway, I mean, the man who is a former head coach came from Central Missouri, has 137 wins on his resume. He's been to the Division Two playoffs many times. I mean, the guy won, and you can see it in Tulane's offense. Michael Pratt, Tajay Spears, the Watt duo out there, receiver. I mean, and then you got to look at the defense. Nick Anderson. I mean, they got some ballers on that team, Calvin. I mean, I think they got some draft picks too. I mean, one of my favorite players on that team, who I actually got to meet recently at the station I work at, Nick Anderson. I mean, the guy is an absolute. He's just a thumper. I mean, he can absolutely ball. I've seen the man in person. He's about a couple inches just taller than me, which is crazy. I mean, I wasn't even looking up at him. I was kind of looking him right in his eye because I'm used to looking up at people, and I'm just like, man, this guy is really just knocking people in the dirt, and I love seeing it. I, that's a linebacker I would love to see on my team. Tulane's got them a good one, and I gotta credit Willie Fritz for redoing the staff. Willie Fritz, I mean, you know me. I was always like, okay, he's on the hot seat. He's got to go. He's got to go. But he turned it around. Turned it around. Then he goes out and gets former head coach to be OC. Love the offense that I'm seeing. I mean, Michael Pratt, Tajay Spears, the Watt duo, like I said, phenomenal offense. Then you got Chris Hampton as DC. People was really questioning him keeping him, but the Tulane defense is actually ranked in some of the most categories in the top 10. That's pretty darn good considering they're Tulane. So I gotta say, I am thoroughly impressed with the Tulane Green Wave this year, and I am absolutely happy to see them ranked because in my lifetime, and even in your lifetime, we've never seen Tulane ranked. We haven't. That's something. That's something great that they could build on. Now I don't know if they can manage to move into the top 15. That'd be pretty beautiful in my opinion, but that is to be determined. But let's talk about something that everyone loves: the LSU Tigers, Calvin. I gotta say, this was the best we've seen this offense play. Bri- Brian Kelly, I forgot exactly the words that he said to Jaden Daniels about his progressions. Whatever he said, it worked perfectly, Calvin. We saw Jaden Daniels unlocked. This what we saw over the weekend was Jaden Daniels from his freshman year. Because I've always told you I'm a huge fan of Jaden Daniels, and I have been for a long time. That was the best I've seen that man play since his freshman year. I mean, he's been doing great this year, in my opinion, but this was just, Jay Daniels on lock. I was seeing him throw deep balls that I haven't seen him throw in a long time. He's been doing just like the dink and dunk game. So, Calvin, I gotta get your take. What did you think about the LSU's offense this past weekend?
Um, it looked pretty good. I mean, when you have your quarterback putting on such a masterclass, and I mean, I can admit that this was a Jaden Daniels masterclass. This was Jaden Daniels coming out and saying, really, this is Brian Kelly also coming out here and saying, you know what, I'm finally going to trust my quarterback completely. I'm going to let him rip. I'm gonna let him unload, and whatever happens, happens. And Jaden Daniels stepped up to the plate. I mean, yes, Florida is unranked, so I mean there is that. Um, but like I say it every week. Any given Saturday, anybody can get beat at any time, and I mean, special teams try to lose you that game a couple times. Um, so you still could have lost, but Jaden Daniels, what he put up like what 6 touchdowns, something like that, something in that range.
He had like six total touchdowns. I want to say three through the air and three on the ground.
Yeah,
Crazy.
see, exactly. When you put up 6 touchdowns, I mean, you have no choice other than to win. I mean, once you put up six, I mean, how many teams do we know where one player put up 6 touchdowns and the team lost? I mean, Alvin Kamara did it against Vikings. We won that game. So I mean, things like that. Um, he has a challenge though. The you have to be consistent in any league. And yes, this is all fine and dandy. He has 6 touchdowns against Florida, but can you do it against number 7? Probably going to be a little higher ranked, maybe a little lower. Who knows? Ole Miss, because I mean, Ole Miss, their defense is average, above average, but their offense is also pretty scary in a way. Um, and you can't start off slow with these guys because you could easily get into a shootout, and I don't know if LSU's offense will be able to keep up with that type of firepower unless Jaden Daniels has another game like he did this week. So it's going to be a tough task and a tough ask of him, but it is very possible. So if this is what's to come for the rest of the season, then you guys just might hit that 9 game, 10 game mark that I had y'all hitting if everything went right, and it's starting to seem like everything's starting to go right.
Well, I mean, I in the beginning when we first started the podcast, Kevin, I told you, you and I even had discussions off the pod. I said this LSU team can win 10 games. My record prediction was 10-2 as the ceiling and the floor 9-3. I think that's still in the realm of possibility. I mean, they're 4-2. I want to say they're 4-2. I hope I'm right, please. But man, that offense, that was the. I still can't get over how good that offense looked, Calvin. That was the best I've seen this offense look against an SEC team. Florida isn't really a slouch, Calvin. I know they're unranked, but they have a good team. I like Billy Napier, but this LSU offense came to play. Now, like you said, special teams. I'm absolutely sick and tired of seeing the special teams miscues on this LSU football team. I really am. Someone like people know I was a special teams captain for 4 years on my semi-pro team, and for four years we had one of the top units in the league. We kickoff, kick return, punt, field goal, everything. We had one of the best units in the league those 4 years. I credit not only my coaches, but I also feel like I had a hand in that. Brian Polian, I what was wrong with Greg McMahon? I don't get it. I question that hire because you can't even find a dang punt returner that won't fumble the ball. I think what was Jack Besh was what the fourth guy back there. Fourth, I want to say he's the fourth. I don't get what's so hard about finding a punt returner. I'm pretty sure they probably have a bunch of guys on that team that was a punt returner in high school or at some point in their life. And if you ask me, who I think should be back there, and people are going to call me crazy, I think Keishon Butte should be back there at punt returner. Because, I mean, why not? Either him or maybe even Brian Thomas. I feel like you got to get somebody back there that has. I'm not saying Besh or Neighbors doesn't have good hands, but get somebody back there whose hands are like are just sure and certain. Because I've seen Brian Thomas catch everything this year. Brian Thomas has absolutely been a dog for LSU this year. And Keishon Butte, why not? Go get the ball in his hands. He's a playmaker. That's just my opinion, Calvin. But I want to get what is your take on the LSU special teams miscues this year, and what do you think they can do to fix it?
Special teams is one of those things where it's a perplexing situation. I know for us at Tech, we have like 3 plays on like punt and punt return. Like it could be that simple and it can also be that complicated because it's such a weird facet of the game. People overlook it all the time, and when it's overlooked, you can tell because it's going to affect the game in such a major way. Really, special teams is probably the most important thing because it has to be the most consistent at all times. Like it cannot. It cannot have any miscues. I mean, for PATs, you have to make the extra point every single time. For punt, you have to get a good punt every single time. For punt return, you have to catch the ball if you're going to catch the ball. Same for kickoff return, you have to catch the ball. Those things are non-negotiables. They're non-negotiables, and that's what makes special teams so interesting. Because if you say, you have someone drop a punt, all right, well, now we have a problem. If someone gets a punt block, you have a problem. If you miss the extra point, you have a problem. Those things all affect the games in major ways. And usually, when you have special teams miscues, you will lose the game. That's just how life works in football. Um, and honestly, I mean, it's as easy to say as get a punt returner, but there's a lot of things that go into punt return that people don't think about. You have to understand your protections to a key or to a T, and you have to understand what you're looking at and what looks the punt team is giving you. So I mean, it's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, you just throw this person out there." It's just, I mean, yeah, you can always put on coaching, but I mean, there's not really an easy fix. It's really up to the players for special teams because your coach can tell you over and over and over again what you do. It's real simple, right? On kickoff return, you block number five. I mean, that's about as easy as I can tell you to do. Block number five. And if you don't block number five, that's not on the coach. That's on the player. So you just need to go dig deep in your roster and you need to go find some people that actually want to play special teams because not everybody wants to do that and you can tell who doesn't. So easy fix is the best thing I can tell you. Just find some players that want to do it.
That is absolutely. I absolutely agree with that answer, Calvin, because I've played on teams where no one wants to play on special teams. I was always ready to play special teams because like you get on the field. That's how you earn. Sometimes you earn your money. Because in history, we've seen people earn a spot on a team because of special teams and even move up the depth chart because of that. One notable player I can mention is Terrell Davis. Goes out, makes a killer tackle on a punt, and look at him. He's in the Hall of Fame for. He got a shot to play running back for the Broncos, and he won a ball. He's in the Hall of Fame, Calvin. Sometimes all you have to do is make a play on special teams, and you can move up the depth chart. Special teams matters because let's see, Devin Hester. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame soon. Special teams. What he's known for special teams. He's one of the best, if not the best, kick returner, punt returner ever outside of Deion Sanders. I mean, come on. I got it. I want to see players like you said. I want to see get players out there that want to be on special teams. I know there's a bunch of young guys on that team, like freshmen, even sophomores, not really getting no play time that can benefit from playing special teams. That's how you earn your stripes out there. Special teams. But enough about LSU. Let's talk about very, very touchy subject, if you want to call it that. Talk about the New Orleans Saints, Calvin. The Saints this past weekend fell to the Bengals 30-26 after having I want to say a 26-10 lead, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that, Calvin, if you need to.
26-14, I believe
Twenty-six
it was.
fourteen, 26-14. Still, that was a lead, and they wound up blowing it. Now, the one thing I want to say is I put this strictly on coaching. The Bengals adjusted at the half. The Saints did not. Okay, no, the Saints did adjust, but they got away from what was working in the first half. We didn't see Taysom Hill at all in the red zone. They
15
didn't get,
snaps total for Taysom Hill, by the way, the entire game.
and I mean, we didn't see Rashid Shaheed after him even scoring a beautiful touchdown from a jet sweep. I mean, they got away from what was working. And I know there's people out there that said, oh, no, this is all Andy Dalton's fault. Blame Andy Dalton. He's the reason why we lost. Absolutely not. He is not the reason why we lost. Andy Dalton went out there and did what he was supposed to. There was two times where he threw a perfectly good ball, but hey, Mr. Official, throw the flag. It's defensive pass interference. That last play to Callaway that could have probably set us up for maybe a score at the end of the game, Calvin maybe to win it. That's DPI. And if that's not, then I don't know what is. And it was another time Eli Apple got away with a defensive pass interference they didn't call, but I guess defensive pass interference doesn't exist when the Saints are playing because we've seen that many times. We've seen it many times, but I want to get your take or opinion on a couple things. First off, I want to get your opinion on Andy Dalton and what do you think about him going forward? I want to get your opinion on the poor defense and do you think they can get it together and finally start tackling some people? And I want to just get your overall opinion on the coaching. And do you think this team can win with Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael at the forefront of the coaching staff of this team?
So, ready to start with Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is a game manager. I mean, his stats was 17 for 32, 1 TD, 162 yards passing. You're going to get that about every single week. And we've gotten that just about every single week. You're not going to get a 300-yard, 3 touchdown passing game from him. You're not going to get a 21 for 29, 200 and some yards. No, you're just not going to get it from Andy Dalton nowadays. Andy Dalton is not the reason why we lost the game, but I can also say he ain't the reason why we won either. Because I mean, I understand that last drive. Really, the last two drives were pretty telling to me of Andy Dalton because in that last was, I mean, it's gonna sound really wild to say this, but I probably would have rather have Jameis on the last possession because at least I know he's going to throw it deep, right? Um, I feel like somebody had to be open deep. I understand the Bengals were playing; they were playing like soft zones. They're letting everything happen underneath, as you would in that situation. But I want to talk about the second to last drive that we had, 4 minute offense. Really, it was 3 minute offense, and you go out there and you have a three and out. I mean, that's just unacceptable. I don't understand why that even was the case. Um, and then on the last drive, you're throwing dink and dunks the entire way, and you have like 40 seconds left. I mean, and you're on the 50-yard line. Like you need to speed it up a little bit. Like it's not working. And then you have two passes that is thrown behind Alvin Kamara had a pass thrown behind him for a check down. He drops it. Marquez Callaway next play, about 5 yard drag route, drops it because it's thrown behind him a little bit. And then of course Trey Henderson comes out. Juwan Johnson's wide open for a first down on third down, and Trey Henderson just beats the hell out of uh, Hurst. I forgot his name already. Not Hayden Hurst, but Hurst. He beats Hurst and tips the ball or touches Andy Dalton's arm, and Andy throws an errant pass for an incomplete pass, and it's not Andy Dalton, but it's also not the reason why he will make us win. So Andy Dalton's not your quarterback for the future. He's just not. Um, in terms of defense, we all knew that this is what we were going to get because I really hate it, but this has been the truth of this defense for the past 5 years, and that's when Marshawn Lattimore is not playing, we suck. And that just goes to show you how absolutely elite. Like I don't care what the stats say. I don't care what the rankings say. Marshawn Lattimore is a top three cornerback in the league because I guarantee you no other defense in the NFL would look as bad as the Saints defense looks when their starting cornerback is out. Like when Marshawn is out. The defense falls apart. Everything just starts going wrong. It's bad. It's like even the D line plays worse. It just doesn't make sense how he's such an anchor for the defense, and it's so telling. And there's no one else that can really pick up the slack. No one. But you see Marshawn, he's picking up the slack for even guys who are making the safety mistakes. He's down there in the safety area, like 35 yards down the field, running as fast as he can. That's why he got hurt because he's having to overcompensate for everybody. Um, and the coaching, let me just say, the Saints are a very perplexing team because we easily could be 6-0, and we easily could be 0-6. And I guess you could say that for about every team in the league, but more so for the Saints because we watch them. You have, which also shout out to Alvin Kamara, he was 1 yard short of 100 yards, two games in a row almost. But you have the NFC Player of the Week in Taysom Hill, and you only play him 15 snaps the next game. I mean that's unacceptable. I don't know what the game plan was in that. I don't understand who are you trying to outsmart with that. Rashid Shaheed, first play of the game, blows by Eli Apple. Too bad either it was miscommunication from him and Andy Dalton, or Andy Dalton just threw a terrible pass. But he was open, and that was a touchdown, 100%. And then you don't see him for the rest of the game. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that you have a guy who's proven to be the fastest guy on the field, and you not even try and use him. And I mean, that was the problem with Deontay Harris. Well, then Deontay Harris, we didn't use him that much, and then when we started using him, we started seeing some success. So I hope that Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael say, okay, well, let's use these guys a little bit more because we found success. Second half, I hate coaches like this, and all these coaches get fired. The coaches that play not to lose in the second half when they have a lead. And Jim Haslett and Jim Moore were these type of coaches where they'll have a 3-point lead and they're so defensive minded, they believe they can win the game 3-0. And that's just not realistic in any type of league ever unless you play in middle school. That's just not true. So we're up by 2 scores and we're just content with, oh yeah, all right, first down run, okay, we got a yard. All right, well, let's run it again. 2nd and 9, all right, we got another yard. 3rd and 8, well, how about a 5-yard drag? Oh, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, well, we'll kick a field goal. No, we're playing against a high-powered Bengals offense where you see your defense is cracking surely but slowly, like they're not going to be able to hold much longer. At some point, you're going to start trading those field goals. You're going to get field goals, and the other team's going to start getting touchdowns. And that's exactly what you saw. The defense could not hold any longer. You knew that anytime the Bengals were going on the field, they were going to score some type of points. And Dennis Allen, for some reason, just didn't understand that, and they didn't change the play calling with Pete Carmichael to say, hey, let's be a little more aggressive. Let's start going forward on 4th down, even when we have a lead, because we have to keep scoring and we have to put touchdowns on the board. I knew going into the half when we didn't score a touchdown and we scored a field goal, we got ball back and we didn't score a touchdown. We traded a 14-point swing for 6 points. Now you add 7, 8 points to our score. That's a win. But no, you decide to go get field goals. Um, Tyron Matthew, man, I'm scared. I'm scared because he looks bad. He's looked bad all year, and I thought he would figure it out by now. But it looks like he just physically cannot keep up anymore, and that he physically cannot hit anymore because he's not throwing himself out anymore. Like I feel like this is it. We got a lemon, everybody. We bought a damn lemon. We lied to ourselves, thinking we got the deepest secondary in the league. Well, we don't because we have people who are either in jail, either hurt, or washed. And then you trade away Chauncey. But I mean, there's so much more. I could talk for about 20, 30 more minutes on it, but I'm not going to do that. But I think I'm gonna lead this in with this because I mean we all understand the problems we have. D line sucks, all that. We know. Michael Thomas needs to get the hell back on. If he need to get his life together, I don't know what the hell he's doing. Um, Jarvis, if you want to keep on playing this league, because this is probably one of your only chances left. I mean, at this point, you're probably in Emmanuel Sanders part of your career. You need to find a spark and you need to get back on the field. You need to play. You cannot afford not to play. I will say before I bring on my next point, before I ask you, I'm gonna ask you a question, Logan. After I say a couple things, um, I think the offense will be somewhat fine once you have Chris Olave and Jarvis and Mike Thomas back. Because I mean, it was going to be hard regardless. You lost your starting guard. Don P was out. You lost your starting cornerback. You lost your top 3 starting receivers. It was going to be hard. Oh, and you lose Adam Troutman in the middle of the game too with a wild injury, non-contact. It was going to be hard anyway. And I'm actually happy that we put up this many points. And I'm happy that we actually was competing because I didn't expect us to compete against AFC champions with this many important pieces gone. So it gives me a little hope. But if we lose this next game, sound the alarms. Please sound the alarms. But I want to bring this up. So I have a list because I see on your Twitter all the time you're talking about one and done head coaches. Dennis Allen just might be that. And I knew going in that he wasn't the right hire, but I was fine with it because you know what? Sure, the front office knows more than me, right? Well, so I just wanted to bring up a few candidates that I have, and I'm gonna ask you some of your candidates just on the spot. So, in no particular order, I have Ken Dorsey. I would really like to see him as our head coach. I love what he's doing over there in Buffalo. Um, Brian Flores, he was my top candidate last year. Hopefully, he figures everything out with the league. Otherwise, he's probably gonna get blackballed, and I hope that's not the case. Byron Leftwich, um, I really like him also as a head coach. Mike Kafka, Jim Caldwell, and the Eagles OC Shane Steichen. Um, if you also notice, most of these guys are offensive minded coaches because the defensive minded coaches in the league, like Dan Quinn, Tabo, they're just not going to work. They're not going to. And we've proven many times the defensive coaches don't really work unless you're Bill Belichick. And how many Bill Belichicks are there in the league? So, yeah, one. So, with those names, do you agree with some of the names I have on here? And also, who are your head coaching candidates for next season?
Well, I mean, I do agree that maybe Dennis Allen, not even maybe Dennis Allen should be one and done. I mean, and over the 2 decades Mickey has been here, he's never done it. I mean, maybe he does it now. I mean, we would all like him to do it because what you're seeing on the field right now is a product of a coach who was 8-28 in his first tenure as a head coach in Oakland. We're seeing that. We're seeing that representation of that. But with that being said, I mean, I'm on the Eric Bieniemy train. I mean, that's been my number one guy for a few years now, and it's absolutely odd why he's not a head coach, and it was absolutely odd that we met with the man for over 8 hours and we did not give him a job. So that would be my number one guy, Ken Dorsey, who many know him from his time for playing with the second greatest college football team of all time in the 2001 Miami team. He's doing a fantastic job in Buffalo. That would be one of my other guys. I agree with you on that. And I mean, I oddly enough, I actually made a list last night because I was just like, I'm going to make a list. And Greg Roman is a name that should be thrown out there because if you think about this, it's like maybe if I go get Greg Roman, maybe Lamar will follow him because that offense does not work without Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson. Let's think about that. So Leslie Frazier, he was once a head coach many moons ago. That Buffalo Bills defense, ever since he got over there, has been some of the top defenses in the league for a while now, and I would love to see him. And another name, I mean, the Vikings offensive coordinator, Wes Phillips. I don't know if he came over from the Rams. He followed Kevin O'Connell. It's part of the Sean McVay coaching tree. The Sean McVay coaching tree has had quite the success in this league. I mean, if Zach Taylor can go to a Super Bowl of all people, then I mean, come on now. Wes Phillips, for those who don't know, he's Wade Phillips' son, and Wade Phillips once was a interim head coach down here after his dad, Bum Phillips, was fired from the Saints. So I would absolutely love to have somebody like Wes Phillips. I mean, he's young, he's offensive minded. We need somebody offensive minded, but I also Byron Leftwich was a good name that you brought up, and two people who I think are sleepers who I have on my list. Brian Johnson, he's the QB's coach for the Eagles, but he was once the offensive coordinator for Florida during that Kyle Trask unbelievable season. And then you got Ben Johnson, who's the offensive coordinator for the Lions. I mean, he's young. All these guys are kind of on the younger side, but they're offensive minded. But my number one, two, three, four, five, six guy is Eric Bieniemy all the way. I mean, I couldn't imagine what this team would look like if we actually had Eric Bieniemy on the offensive with the offensive mind that he has. But which leads me to ask you this question before we move on to our next topic. And I know it's a controversial one. Calvin, do you think the franchise quarterback for the Saints is in the building?
Um, Hell no. Absolutely not. Look, you know how I feel about Jameis. I really want him to work just because I'm going to support who's ever listed as my QB1. I was all on Trevor Simeon whenever he was my QB1. Like whoever's my QB1, I want to succeed. I want to see them be great. And you know, I know in the back of my head it's Jameis. He's 8 years in. What we've seen is what we've gotten. But hopefully things change. Hopefully, I really wanted him to have like a Cordell Patterson type revival of a career where it's like, all right, this guy is whatever, and all of a sudden he's just great. Um, it can happen. We've seen it happen in the league plenty times, but no, the quarterback of the future is not in there. And also, I'm gonna say this real quick. I am extremely jealous of the Giants and the Eagles. Nick Sirianni is your coach, and Brian Daboll. I am absolutely goddamn jealous because these guys they hit on first time coach. I am livid because Brian Daboll is doing so much more with less, in my opinion. Nick Sirianni, yes, he has a great team. And he's doing so well with it. He's not losing with a great team. I mean, we're losing with a great team. Oh my goodness. Even I'm just jealous. I'm jealous because they hit on their pick and we're over here floundering and begging for firings of somebody in this franchise. But um I think I'll give people a little sneak peek of probably what the next podcast would be. Uh Mock drafts and trade ideas because I think we're at that point to where we're going to need a first round pick. We're going to need one to if we want to right this ship. There's going to have to be some sacrifices, some tough sacrifices. Um, and I think those sacrifices would be packaging players. And I'm going to say this: the only untouchables to me right now, Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Alvin Kamara, Eric McCoy, and that's probably it. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, that's probably it. Mike Thomas too. I'll throw him on there, depending on how injured he wants to be. Um, I don't want to get rid of him, but I already know how this plays out. The emergence of Chris Olave, we've seen it millions of times with Mickey Loomis in his 20-year tenure here. There's a young guy who's behind a guy who's making a bunch of money, who is a Pro Bowler, and Mickey Loomis decides, well, wait a minute, I'm paying this guy $100 million to do slightly worse than this guy who I just drafted. So I'm going to get rid of this guy over here, and I'm going to let this young buck come in and shine. We've seen it millions of times with Mickey Loomis. So I can 100% see him dumping off Mike Thomas because of the emergence of Chris Olave. I hope that doesn't happen because I really, really, really love Michael Thomas here, and I don't want this to be another Brandon Cooks, Jimmy Graham type situation, even though Jimmy Graham has not been the same since. But yeah, man, things are gonna have to change. You're gonna have to start throwing some people out in some trades and stuff to get a first. I pray to God that we don't use that first on a D lineman because Saints the Saints D lineman in the first round, other than Cam Jordan, just don't work. And then when they do work, like Sheldon Rankins did for a little bit until he got injured, you get rid of them. Um, and just one more thing on the D line. I mean, we say it every week. They are concerned. They are slow as hell. They're all power rushers. It's disgusting to watch. David Onyemata needs to find a way to get back on performance enhancing drugs because he is not the same David Onyemata that we saw on PEDs. Um, Cam Jordan is old as hell. We knew that, and he's starting to show it because that stinky cross chop is not working any longer. Um, it seems like our best D lineman is when we blitz a linebacker, and that's not good when you're a D line. And as a D line, you should feel offended by that. And Marcus Davenport, I mean, you basically spent two first round picks, three first round picks on a guy who you could have had Lamar Jackson, just FYI. And he has it's his fifth year going into his seventh game, and he has half of a sack. I mean, I don't know what a bust is, but that's got to be one. It just has to be. And Peyton Turner has some phantom ass chest injury. I don't know. Maybe he got punched in the chest too hard and he's crying to his mama at this point, saying, "Oh, I can't play." So, yeah, man, we need some help.
Well, they ended with the Saints. The Saints take on the Arizona Cardinals Thursday night. on Amazon Prime and also in wherever you can find it in your local TV markets. It will be a tough game because the Saints historically do not do well against mobile quarterbacks. But moving on to our last and final topic to touch briefly on, Calvin, the NBA season tips off for the New Orleans Pelicans Wednesday against the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn. We will finally see a healthy Pelicans team. It'll be the trio of Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ taking on Ben Simmons, KD, Kyrie. It will truly be a battle of who wants it more. And to be honest with you, Ben Simmons does not frighten me. Kyrie, I mean, it's Kyrie. KD, I don't know who we can put on him, but honestly, I think our team is deeper than the Brooklyn Nets this year.
You know exactly who to put on KD.
Yeah,
Unleash Herb.
Herb,
Unleash
Herb
Herb.
Jones. Herb Jones. You are absolutely right about that. I'm so happy we got Herb Jones. You know me. But it will truly be, I think, a battle. And I think from watching preseason, I think our team is deeper, and we have some very underrated shooters coming off the bench. And Trey Murphy might be a knockdown corner three specialist in this game. So I think this Wednesday night, even though I won't be able to really watch the game because I will be working, but Calvin, I want to get your quick opinion before we go on. What do you think? What are you expecting to see this Wednesday night? And also, do the Pelicans come out victorious and by how many?
I'm expecting a win, obviously, but uh, the real life answer to that would be I'm expecting cohesion. I'm expecting chemistry because that is at the end of the day that is what's going to win this game because I think this might be a shootout. Unfortunately, um, I would like to think we have more defense, but I mean Kyrie's probably going to be guarded by CJ, and we all know how CJ is on defense. It's disgusting. Um, Jose, when he gets on Kyrie, I mean, how many times is Jose gonna be in the game with Kyrie? I mean, let's be honest. Um, I would like to think our defense is better, but who knows? Honestly, so I think this might be a shootout. Um, but the butting heads of Ben Simmons, KD, and Kyrie, who two out of those three decided, well, I don't want to be here anymore. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how true that is. Uh, we're gonna see what type of KD and Kyrie gonna come out with. Are we gonna get the KD of man? I just kind of want to get my paycheck and get to the offseason so I can get on a new team, or are we gonna get vaccination Kyrie, where it's like, you know what, I don't really want to play because I don't feel like it. I burned my sage before the game, and the sage told me to not play today. So I hope we get hippie Kyrie and don't want to be here, KD. But a win, man. That's what I'm expecting.
Well, couldn't have said it better myself, Calvin. And I think it's going to be a very, very exciting season for the New Orleans Pelicans, or our New Orleans Pelicans, because you know we love us some Pelicans down here, Calvin. And I'm I've said it on the podcast before. I think this Pelicans team can win upwards of 50 games and even reach the fourth seed in the Western Conference. Now, I'm even going to be bold enough to say I think this could be a Western Conference Finals team if everyone stays healthy. Let's say Zion plays 70 games. Let's say he plays 70 games. I think that's a good number. 70 games for Zion, I think that's the perfect right amount. Because if he plays 70 games and we're already at win 50 and we already clinched, you could rest him for you could rest him a couple games during that period. You could do the same with a lot of players, but let's say he actually plays 82 games and he silenced the critics. I think people will be pleasantly surprised that maybe this team can even win as many as 60. That would definitely break the franchise win record, and I'm very excited for this Pelicans team because this Saints if the Saints lose Thursday, I'm willing to sacrifice that whole season for a Pelicans trip to the finals. They can go. I'm willing to sacrifice this whole Saints season because that's the way it's looking. And I think it's time to flock up, Calvin. It's time to fly high. Time to take flight.
Won't bow
Pelicans are
down.
here.
You
Won't
gotta
bow
fight.
down. The Pelicans are here, and I think it's going to be quite the exciting season for the New Orleans Pelicans. And we are out of time here, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, also, let me give a quick shout out to
Go ahead.
we always talk down on them, but I gotta shout them out. Marquez, Traquan, and Key Kirkwood. They stepped up. Not gonna lie, I know it was a stinky looking receiving core. It was just like the receiving core last year, but they stepped up. I'm happy with their production. I really wish that Marquez would have got the DPI at the end of the game because if Eli Apple was in black and gold, they would have threw every single flag in the building if he would
Oh,
have
yeah.
pulled that joint. You don't trip and fall over somebody because I've seen Marshawn lose his feet and they call a pass interference on him. So I mean,
10 out of 10
I don't understand.
times.
10 out of 10 times. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But shout out to them. Um, hate Eli Apple. Tails going to the chip. So that's all I got.
Well, I'm love ending it on that note, Calvin. So, with that being said, this has been another great edition of The Hit. I am your man, Logan Graffia. He is the fantastic Calvin Rhymes. We shall see you very, very soon for another great edition of The Hit.